Welcome to everyone that's joined us thus far to the first in a series of informational webinars that Nisga'a government in partnership with MNP will be delivering in relation to federal and provincial programs and benefits COVID-19 related. We'll first begin in our traditional fashion, and I'd like to ask our Chief Executive Officer, Collier Isaac, Samagat Axlian, if he will open us in prayer, keeping in mind the recent losses that we've experienced in the Nisga'a Nation. Collier?
Okay, thank you, Bobby. Good evening, everyone. You'll just bow your heads. We talk on the go on who that's in the haggy. The oixum is all mean. I'm a galant six at gun will the achtum side gora. Sanil lixgatul I will it will need out. Can see any jock. E up the achtum the side gora and scatum dip the nax. I'll get lorry so I will. And some almost with good federal and provincial government. Gordon the Nidikis. You got to get good time to gun. Gordon who not as slack and now is yucked. Good to will it and low duxty. Uchty wilt. The small some sand, Gunadas on me, kneel them, Scogot Lordy, yucked them. Listen dit seraak to be dag dit laas the might will but max and so see the so many being saskit and raw then come as am acht gun come quick the nitty kidum and the last gun nit kun I'm like what mean Jesus Christ and will will.
Excellent, Collier, thank you. So we have with us today our panelists. I'll begin with introductions of Ryan Hales first. Ryan is a partner and business advisor in MNP's Terrace office. Ryan is a lifelong resident of Terrace and has worked in public practice for the past 12 years. A member of the Indigenous Services team, Ryan delivers a full suite of assurance and accounting solutions, as well as customized advice to First Nations communities, governments, and business groups. So welcome, Ryan. If you could just give us a wave. Pleasure to have you join us this evening. Ms. Denise Verreau, who is the Director of Programs and Services for Nisga'a government, and Beverly Isaac, who is the Deputy Director of Programs and Services with Nisga'a government. Welcome to you both. We look forward to the discussions and the information that each of you will be providing to us this evening, and to answer questions that have been posed from citizens since we provided notification of this webinar. We'll get right into our sort of general overview of the purpose of this first webinar. It'll be focused on certain aspects of COVID-19 federal and provincial programs and benefits. And then, of course, we mentioned that this is a series of webinars, so they'll be very focused. And we'll start with our first question that we'll have Ryan provide us an overview of. So, what programs exist for people who are out of work or having financial difficulties during COVID?
Thanks, Bobby. And thanks just first off to the entire team at NLG and for everybody tuning in on your evening to listen to an accountant talk. I'll do my best to keep things interesting and exciting. So I know we were very excited to work on this project with the team at NLG. And kind of the first steps we took were to create a series of documents that I know have been published onto the NLG website, just to outline some of those different programs. So first, what I'll do is maybe I'll go through the federal government programs that are currently out there and available to individuals. So the first program that's in place, as it was before, is employment insurance benefits. So if you were put out of work before, or were out of work due to sickness or seasonal layoffs or anything like that, the employment insurance benefit would still apply and still carries on through this period. And then effective March 15th, the government brought into place a program called the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. So this provides $500 per week, or about $2,000 per month for up to 16 weeks. And that is available to people in Canada who are out of work because of COVID-19. So that's a really great program, and I think there's been a lot of interest in it, and everybody's been hearing a lot about that one on the news. You'll probably hear us all refer to it as the CERB throughout this webinar, or maybe the CERB if some people say it that way. But those are all the same program. Another similar program that's been rolled out more recently is the Canada Emergency Student Benefit. So this is a similar program, but it's designed for students who maybe didn't lose work because of COVID-19, but now that they've finished their post-secondary semester or have graduated from high school or will be shortly, they're unable to find new work. So that's a benefit for them. It's up to about $1,250 per month for the summer months that they might be working. And then in addition to that, there are some programs that don't require application, but are just kind of extensions of existing programs. So the goods and services tax credit, there's a special payment there. So people who normally receive that credit would receive an increase ranging from anywhere for $400 to $1,000 for families and so on. There's also the Canada Child Benefit. So eligible recipients to that would receive an extra $300 per child on their May benefit. So most people would have seen that one come in already. And then there have been some changes to registered retirement income funds. So there's a reduction in the minimum amount you must withdraw there. And then similar to the CCB, senior citizens receiving old age security payments would have seen an addition of $300 per month that they'll have coming out shortly here. So that's kind of a highlight of the federal programs. And I'll also just bring up, we've got some documents here, some of the ones that are shown on the NLG website. So as I go through the provincial benefits, I'll just refer to that document. Hopefully anybody who's on their computer can see that. So at the provincial level, they've got the emergency benefit for workers. So this is kind of like the BC level of CERB. So British Columbians who are eligible for CERB may qualify. That's kind of a first step along the way to this benefit, and it provides for a one-time payment of $1,000. And then there's an enhanced climate action tax credit available to BC residents. So that was a one-time credit of up to $218, which is an increase of up to almost $175 from the regular tax credit there. And then there are some other kind of specific organizational credits or relief programs. So BC Hydro has a couple programs. One is a payment deferral option. Another is a grant project for those suffering through hardship. And then there's a crisis fund as well. And then Fortis BC has a similar program. ICBC also has some changes where if your license expires, you can do that at a delayed time or electronically. And they've deferred scheduled ICBC payments for 90 days. And there's also a BC temporary rental supplement program that can provide up to $500 per month of rental support that gets paid directly to a landlord. So if you're experiencing rental difficulties, that is a good program to explore. And then other similar programs, most of the major banks, or all of the major banks and credit unions, I believe, have a program where you can defer payments on your mortgage. So that means you can maybe skip a payment, although the payment will still be there, need to be made at a future time, and interest still accrues. But that's a program out there. So that's just kind of a high-level summary of a bunch of the other programs. Also, the provincial level or at the NLG level is additional SA benefit for those on social assistance of $300 a month. And so I think that's all I have, just kind of on a high-level summary. Hopefully that answers that first question.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for that, Ryan. Now, you mentioned CERB, and we've been hearing a lot about this program in the news. And so what is the CERB, and how does one know if they're eligible for it?
Awesome. So that was another tool that we've kind of worked with the group to create. So I'll talk about what the CERB is first. So the CERB is the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, as I mentioned, and it's temporary support to those who are out of work because of COVID-19. Now, there's a kind of a multitude of different reasons you might be out of work. One, your employer may have had a reduction in revenues, or not able to keep their business open, so they've sent you home, or you may have had to stay at home because you have children and you've lost childcare, or have another elderly family member or someone that you have to take care of that doesn't have care anymore. And who it's available to is residents of Canada who are over 15 years of age, who stopped working because of COVID-19. And you may have been eligible for employment insurance benefits. Your employment insurance may have run out and you can't find new work, or your seasonal employment insurance might have run out. And you would have had to have had employment or self-employment income of at least $5,000 in the last 12 months, or in fiscal 2019, so from January to December of 2019. And then you also have a requirement to not have quit your job voluntarily. So you can't choose to leave work to collect the CERB instead. And then that process, you're required to reapply for the CERB for each period that you wish to apply for. And it's done through the online CRA portal, so you can set up an application process through there. And you are also able to earn up to $1,000 a month during the period that you're claiming the CERB. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. You're not necessarily limited, but if you're on a significantly reduced work schedule, still earning a bit, you might still be eligible for the CERB. And then just one last piece, if you've missed out and you think I should have applied for the CERB maybe a couple weeks ago when I became eligible, you can apply retroactively, and that application process will actually be open until December.
Excellent. Great. Thanks for that information. So how does CERB differ from employment insurance?
Excellent. Well, that's so employment insurance is typically there if you're laid off because of a shortage of work, or there are sickness benefits if you're on maybe extended leave from work for sickness. CERB itself is specific to COVID-19. So if you lost your childcare and you had to go work from home, normally that wouldn't qualify you for employment insurance, but in this instance, you would qualify for the CERB. It's run through the same government departments, so the application process looks very similar. And the nice part about the current process is if you're unsure and you think you might qualify for employment insurance, if you do the application through there, you would automatically be processed on to CERB now for anything kind of after March 15th. So they are nicely linked together, and they'll make sure you land in the right place. Just on that particular piece, something I might share there. I'll see if I can bring up the screen. Is a neat tool that we have that'll be coming out, I think, on the website soon. Is a decision tree around CERB. So it's just kind of a nice document that can help walk through the various questions you might have as you're considering if you're eligible for it. So I think that could be an excellent tool for everybody listening here if you're uncertain whether you might or might not qualify for the CERB.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, as we've uploaded a series of information briefing documents on our website for your review and perusal. The address is www.niskanation.ca/COVID-19. And you'll find on the left-hand side of the screen a drop-down menu of the various programs that are listed there. So Ryan, you also mentioned programs that allow for deferral of mortgage payments or BC Hydro payments. And of course, Denise and Bev, once Ryan provides the sort of technical overview of that, you're both welcome to chime in as well on this deferral arrangements with banks on mortgage payments and BC Hydro payments. So Ryan, can you expand on those programs for us?
Absolutely. So maybe we'll start with the BC Hydro program. So if you find that you're having difficulty maybe making hydro payments, work has slowed down, if maybe you're on the CERB and previously you might have been earning more than what the CERB is paying, so you were earning $3,000-4,000 a month. Now you're kind of down to this $2,000 amount and having to consider paying taxes and stuff in the future. You can apply to BC Hydro. There's a relief fund that actually has, might apply a credit to your account equal to 3 months of your average payment. But also there's a deferral program. And what that means is you may owe an amount now. If you don't pay, BC Hydro isn't going to disconnect you. They're going to let that amount continue to accrue. But I think that is important to remember, is that while you may skip a payment for your hydro bill this month, the amount is still there owing for you next month and the month thereafter until it's paid off. Similar goes for mortgage programs. If you're having difficulty or cash flow issues and you think that might be something you'd like to explore, I'd encourage you to reach out to your financial institution to get a full picture of what that program looks like. But the short version is that they essentially will allow you to defer a mortgage payment or maybe multiple mortgage payments. These mortgage payments are generally added on to the end of your term, so they're just shifted from now to a future date. And important to note that that interest continues to accrue on the amounts that are outstanding while you don't make that payment.
Thanks for that, Ryan. And I just want to mention that although there are those great opportunities and we might need those resources now to defer the payments, we just really want to emphasize the fact that if you do defer payments, there's still going to be a payment there. And we do want to just caution people on when they're receiving money or applying for any type of benefit or resource, that they be sure to check in on the taxes and how that impacts your personal income tax.
Excellent, thanks for that, Denise. Yeah, that's very important to information to remember. So we have a question that came in over the weekend, and I'll pose this now. So the individual says, I've applied for one of the support programs, but now I'm not sure I qualify. What are the implications? Are these programs taxable? Perhaps we'll start with that one, Ryan.
That's an excellent question, and I think it's probably one that that more people are asking than maybe we might all think. So first, I'll just touch on the taxable question. So the main one that people are generally asking this about is the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, the CERB, and similar questions for employment insurance benefits. So for anybody who's been on employment insurance benefits, you would know that at the end of the year you receive a slip that says you've received X amount of employment insurance benefits, and they are taxable. But one key difference between employment insurance and CERB is employment insurance will often withhold tax on the payments they make to you, just similar to a paycheck from an employer. And so what that means is you've got tax withheld at the end of the year to cover the amount owing against that income when you file your tax return. The Canada Emergency Response Benefit was intended to get funds into taxpayers' hands, quickly, and to provide relief when they needed it most, related to COVID. So it does not have that component to it, but the full amount of the CERB is taxable. So that's really something important to consider, is when you get to next year's tax return, if you've claimed 4 months worth of CERB, you might have $8,000 worth of taxable income. Now, this can mean different things for everyone. If you have little to no other income, then maybe a tax on $8,000 won't really amount to much. You probably won't pay any tax on that amount. But if you had other income of, say, $40,000 in a year, and then you have the $8,000, well, you're going to pay tax on that amount in, the 15 to 25% range. So 25% of $8,000 is $2,000 in tax that could be payable. And that rate's going to change for everybody. It depends on what your income level is. But I think that's an important thing to consider, is that program isn't the same as others. And the same, I believe, will go for the Canada Emergency Student Benefit as well. The other question, I think, is about applying and maybe not qualifying. So you saw the CERB come out, you were out of work, and you applied, and now you're thinking, geez, I'm not sure if I actually should have claimed that amount, and I've received $2,000 or maybe multiple periods. I think the first thing I can say to that is definitely look into it more, right, and reach out to your local your service providers. There's numbers on the Canada Revenue Agency websites and that to reach out, because I think being proactive in these instances is going to be very important. It's much better to address it from your perspective, phoning them, than someone at CRA to catch up with you later. The deal with these programs is that if you have received it and you're not eligible, they are fully repayable programs. So if you had received, say, the full $8,000, if you do 4 weeks of CERB, and it turns out that you aren't eligible, you are earning more than the $1,000 it's allowed, or for whatever reason, that would be fully repayable. And I think it's important to keep that in mind as you're going through all these programs, is having to repay that could put a pretty strong financial burden on you. So that's something really, really important to consider. But I think being proactive, don't be afraid if you think you might have made a mistake to reach out. There's certainly never a bad question, and being proactive in exploring it will certainly help you out when it comes time for repayment.
Thank you for that, Ryan. I think it's really important to think about what it could look like come next tax season. The amount of taxes that someone might owe from receiving these benefits, which someone can actually receive up to $8,000. So that can impact your income and whatever resources you have next in 2021. So it's really important, if you have, to start budgeting now. I did talk to someone from finance who suggested to put a percentage away so you know that it's there for safety. And if you have realized that you've applied and qualified initially, once Canada Revenue has done their work and reviewed everyone's application, it can be found that you didn't initially qualify. It would be considered fraud, which is really important to know that could develop into something that would be even more taxing on you. So it's really good to review with Canada Revenue Agency and ask them those questions, even if you found that you applied and maybe shouldn't have. And like Ryan has said, it's good to get ahead of that.
Right. Okay, great. Thanks, Bev. Okay, so now that we've covered some of the general programs, we've received a few specific questions that we think may apply to everyone. So I'll start with the first one. So this individual says, I was working but have been laid off by my employer due to a slowdown in business. what program should I be applying for?
So that's I think that's a pretty common scenario, or certainly was a couple weeks ago as things were really slow. So it really depends on the nature of the agreement. But if your employer has laid you off kind of as a permanent layoff, maybe something that would be more routine, I think employment insurance is absolutely the good first place to start. And then the good news is right now, if employment insurance determines that no, you don't qualify that, this is a COVID-19 related issue here, they'll slot you into the CERB, the CERB program automatically, and you'll end up receiving that CERB benefit. So those two programs are working in really good synergy right now, which is excellent. And just thinking as an aside, as an accountant here, if you're wanting to really bring some value to your employer, depending what kind of employer they are, you might inquire and suggest that they could explore the Canadian emergency wage subsidy, which is available to employers who've seen a reduction in revenue, and it enables them to keep employees on payroll, which can often benefit them and benefit the employees as well. So that's something an employer could investigate, but that's probably for a future webinar.
Excellent, thank you. So just a note to all of the participants and observers. You'll note on the bottom of your screen there's a Q&A box there. If you click on that, you can type in a question if you have one for the panelists in relation to the information they've presented this evening. We'll have some time towards the end of this webinar to entertain some of your questions. We have received some over the weekend, as I mentioned, so I'll just continue with these questions. So the next one is, this individual says, I'm willing and able to return to work, but I cannot find childcare. What supports and programs should I be looking into?
Awesome. Well, I think for that particular circumstance, you would want to apply to the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, the CERB. That's exactly what it's designed for, is people who are unable to work because COVID is somehow otherwise affecting their life. So that would definitely be the funding program that I would be looking into. And just to note kind of around that, if your spouse is still able to work, but you have to stay home for childcare, you can still qualify for the CERB. So it's not maybe family unit dependent, it's on the individual basis. So I think that's important. There are also some other things to consider out there. So if you're someone that would be considered an essential worker, there's temporary emergency childcare support for essential workers. So you can request emergency childcare and it will be provided. There's kind of a tiered system for looking into that. But there are programs with the provincial government there that provide that type of childcare, because it's recognized that those essential workers, we all need them at work during these tough times.
Okay, great. So if you're just joining us, welcome to our first webinar. This is being recorded, so if you've missed a portion of it, we'll make it available on our website and social media sites as well. We are receiving information from Ryan Hales, who's with MMP in Terrace, and Denise Farreau and Beverly Azak, who are providing information in this first webinar, largely in relation to CERB and other federal and provincial programs. The information is available on our website, and I'll just pull it up. So here's our website. If you go to the Social Services tab, and then under Emergency Programs, so this is where we post all information in relation to the Nisga'a Nation's response to COVID-19. But you'll see here on the left side of the screen, we have information that we post here And as federal and provincial programs evolve, if new programs are announced, we'll provide further information in relation to how an Nisga'a citizen may access those. So that's just for information there. And we'll continue on with our incoming questions. So this one is in relation to a Nisga'a program. And this came in again over the weekend. And this is, during COVID-19, will the urban housing renovation grant be available to apply for? I am hoping to replace my roof on my home I bought in October and was hoping to inquire. So perhaps if we could call on our Deputy Director of Finance, Mr. Darren Martins, if you wouldn't mind providing some information on this.
Thank you, Bobby. And thanks for the question. It is my understanding, yes, in consultation with the manager in charge of the renovation grants, that NLG is pursuing and continuing to accept and process renovation and urban grants in a typical fashion, notwithstanding COVID-19. That said, one thing I would suggest may be impacted by COVID-19 is the ability to actually undertake the related work associated with, say, for instance, a renovation that you're planning on, given the logistics of procuring materials and labor, particularly to the NAS, amidst COVID-19 and the need for social distancing and restrictions on travel. I would anticipate that there may be some delays in actually executing on the funding that's been granted, but we are moving forward with the typical application process. So hopefully that answers that question.
Excellent, thanks for that, Darren. So another question in relation to, not really in relation to the information that is presented, but this was in relation to campsites. So will the campsites in Dragon Lake Rec site be open to locals? And perhaps I can provide a bit of information on this. The Nisga'a Nation's response to COVID-19 is overseen by the Nisga'a Emergency Program Committee, and that is led by NLG's Emergency Response Services Manager, Anthony Moore, and his staff. And that committee is comprised of representatives of NLG, Nisga'a Valley Health, and each of the Nisga'a Village governments, as well as school district and the RCMP. So that committee is currently working on a national strategy for reopening public facilities and recreation sites as well. It's going to be a carefully devised plan that will ensure the safety and health measures are implemented. So you can look for that in the coming weeks as the committee finalizes their plan for reopening various parks and recreation sites. So thanks for that question. So now the next one is in relation to CERB. So people who have been eligible for CERB are about to receive their last payment. Will the government create a program to bridge the gap until work can begin? Perhaps you can start with this one, Ryan.
Absolutely. So I think at this kind of stage of the game, everybody's starting to think, hey, I'd like to get back to work. Now, what they have done, and we're still waiting kind of updates, I guess, as we go, but what they have done is say that the CERB period extends until actually sometime in October. but you're eligible for kind of only a 4-week period at this time. So I think it really requires some management. If you've applied for it consistently, or sorry, a 16-week period, a 4-month period. So if you applied for it consistently from the start, you may be getting close to the end of that period. But we are watching kind of continuously to see if there's changes to make the eligible period longer. Certainly, it's open for that period of time, but it may change as we go. I think one of the key programs that the government is really hoping will come into play is the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, which really allows employers to hire back employees, and maybe even if they're not able to work full time, if the employer has seen a reduction in wage, they can still hire and pay those, and the government will pay a subsidy to help cover their wage. So I think that's a big program that we're watching for.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So that that concludes all of the incoming questions that were submitted over the weekend. So that gives us some time, as I mentioned, for any of the participants on our webinar this evening. If you'd like to pose a question. So we've had a couple come in on the Q&A section of the site. So I'll just read these out. Some benefits that individuals may be entitled to receive do not actually require application, but do require you to have filed an income tax return. I believe most require only a 2018 tax return to be filed. Is that correct? Is there a risk that may be an interruption in benefits if a 2019 tax return is not filed? And when is it due?
That is an excellent question. So yeah, benefits like the Canada Child benefit or the old age security benefit and so on, most of those require that you have a 2018 tax return filed. Now the government has said that for those programs that require a tax return, they will not cease benefits if you do not file your 2019 or have not filed your 2019 tax return. That said, I think it's always important to do your best to file those returns on time, because they may change the amount that you receive regularly under some of those programs. And potentially that could change for the positive. So I think it's important to get those returns filed as soon as you can. So your 2019 tax return, this is a great lead in here. 2019 tax return is actually due next Monday, so June 1st. Now with that, the exception to that would be if you're self-employed, your return is still due on June 15th, as it always would have been. The other side of that coin, though, is that payments on taxes are not due until September 1st. So you have until June 1 to file your tax return, but then you have another couple months to actually make a payment. And if you're a couple days late and you're worried, the federal government has said there won't be penalty or interest as long as payments in full are made by that September 1 cutoff and tax returns are filed by then. So I think that's an excellent question.
Great, thanks. And just as an extension of that, if I owe tax, when do I have to pay? That's the next question. Excellent. So yeah, if you owe tax, the payment absolutely has to be made at the latest by September 1st of 2020. So we'll have 3 months, I guess, after the tax filing deadline to get those payments made. So here's another incoming question. Although children had an increase of $300 on May's child tax benefit, This is tax-based. Therefore, not all children on Nisga'a lands receive this increase. Would Nisga'a Nation provide a benefit to all Nisga'a children on Nisga'a lands, or is there a benefit for Nisga'a children? Not sure who would want to tackle that one, Denise or Bev?
Thanks, Bobby. And just reading the question, would Nisga'a Nation provide a benefit to all Nisga'a children on Nisga'a lands, or is there a benefit for Nisga'a children? So right now, we do know that, yes, there has been the child tax benefit, but this would be definitely a question that would be thought out and discussed before there would be any decision made. I'm just going to add Darren if he'd like, ask Darren if he'd like to add to the reply.
I have nothing to add at this juncture. That is a question, however, we could definitely note, and perhaps we could bring forward a response upon further deliberation at our next session.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Darren. So the Nisga'a Nation did receive, as we've announced, from the Indigenous Community Support Fund from Indigenous Service Canada, 1.3 million that was dispersed to each Nisga'a village government and each Nisga'a urban local for their response to COVID-19. And an excerpt from the Indigenous Service Canada website says, these new funds will provide Indigenous leadership with flexibility needed to design and implement community-based solutions to prepare for and react to the spread of COVID-19 within their communities. These funds could be used for measures including, but not limited to, support for elders and vulnerable community members, measures to address food insecurity, educational and other support for children, mental health assistance and emergency response services, and preparedness measures to prevent the spread of COVID-19. So each of those Nisga'a entities have been implementing that fund to their respective communities. And I would recommend that any citizen interested to learn more about that, feel free to contact your respective Nisga'a village government or Nisga'a urban local. Okay, so we've had a couple more incoming questions, as you will see in the Q&A box. Is there going to be a limit on gatherings in the Nisga'a Nation? That's another question in relation to the Nisga'a Nation's response to COVID-19. And as I mentioned, the Nisga'a Emergency Preparedness Committee is definitely contemplating this in their strategic planning on reopening public facilities and implementing safety measures for that. The committee has been following the orders and recommendations of the provincial health officer, and definitely have been erring on the side of caution with respect to public gatherings in the nation. So thank you for that question. And another incoming question is, if you owe income tax for 2019, is the deadline to remit September 1, regardless of whether you have been financially impacted by COVID-19? Is this deferment for everyone? Ryan, did you want to tackle that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the deadline to make payment for taxes has been deferred to September 1, regardless of whether you've been financially impacted by COVID-19 or not. So that that deferment is for every single taxpayer in Canada.
Excellent, thanks. And we just got another incoming question. Will a checkpoint added to the entrance of the Nass Valley, and or will a checkpoint be added to the entrance of the Nass Valley and or Nisga'a communities? Another excellent question in relation to the nation's response to COVID-19. And as the committee had announced in one of their weekly updates, they have developed a Nisga'a Nation checkpoint plan that is currently being finalized, I believe. And that will, once implemented, it will consist of 2 checkpoint locations. One, as you indicated, to the entrance of the Nisga'a lands on the provincial lava bed park. And also at the entrance to Nisga'a Highway 113 on the Cranberry Connector. So thank you for that question. So are there any other incoming questions for our panelists this evening?
Well, we give everybody a chance to maybe think of another question if they have one. I think I would just like to maybe kind of add that for all these programs, the service organizations that support them are all very accessible. I know sometimes there have been wait times to get through to phone lines or things like that, but I would encourage you, if you have any questions about any of them, check out the information that's been posted on the NLG website, and you know, from there are often links through to the, you know, whether it's Service Canada, CRA, or one of the other organizations' websites, or phone the 1-800 numbers associated with these programs and ask the questions. I think no amount of information is too much when you're considering whether you do or don't apply to these programs, and so it never hurts to ask, and I think that's something that I know certainly we found with lots of our clients, is people are getting positive support from all the organizations.
Excellent, thanks for that. So another question just came in. When is our next webinar planned? I think we have an excellent team that has been working in the background on organizing these, and I think our preliminary discussions were that that we would shoot for weekly webinars, again with a focus on today's focus was primarily on CERB and deferral of mortgage and BC Hydro payments, and there's opportunity for us to further expand on all of the information that you'll find on the website. So if you'd like for us to consider your suggestions on various areas that you'd like to receive information on, please feel free to send us an email with your suggestions, and you could send that email request to communications@nisga'a.net, which has been included on the notice that went out last week. So as we're almost approaching 1 hour, which was our intended planned time limit for this first information webinar. If there are no other questions, and I don't see any coming in, Perhaps Bev, Denise, did you want to provide any closing summary comments?
Thanks very much, Bobby. And thank you, Ryan, for that very informative session. We really appreciate the information. And as noted previously, please make sure that you're checking in with your local Canada Revenue Services organizations, or you can check in also on our website. There's many links there. We just want to make sure that people have a clear understanding of what resources are out there, but also how it might impact you, especially with your taxes. So we just want to be mindful of that, and we really look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Deb, would you like to say anything?
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Bobby and Ryan. I just wanted to say that considering that we are in a time of need, that also that there are these opportunities. It's really good to check with someone first, even though you might choose to take this opportunity. It might not be a good choice in the long run. So with respect to BC Hydro, it's really good to contact them. They have a 1-800 number. They have a website where you can ask questions as well. But just know that when you defer anything, whether it's your mortgage or any payments with, even if your auto loans, that there's interest added on. Plus, you're still going to have to pay whatever, if it's deferred for 3 months, you're still going to have to pay those 3 months and interest on top of that at the end of your loan. So when you think you've completed your 5-year loan, there's still going to be more to pay on top of that. So just keep that in mind when you're planning it. It's good to do all that financial planning. So yeah, we're looking forward to the next webinar too. This is really good information, and it's good to stay on top of things, and especially around your own money. Good night, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you, Bev and Denise. We did get a couple more questions, so just before we wrap up. So with the income tax payment deferment program in place, has there been any consideration given to property tax deferment? I believe that's in relation to the Nisga'a property tax. So perhaps Mr. McCormick, if you wanted to touch on that.
Thank you, Bobby, and thank you for the person that posed the question. It's a very valid question, and it's certainly something that we have contemplated at NLG. We are restricted, however, in providing any deferments associated with property taxation payments at this stage because of the close connection to the property tax regime with the province of British Columbia. That said, we are exploring other alternatives, and further information will be made public very soon as we dive deeper into what those options might look like.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. And that was, yeah, that was a very good question. So we have the final question. I saw in the news the other day that some qualify for a top-up on pay. Would janitorial staff fall under that, or any employers here in the nation?
So I think there's a couple potential scenarios there that might fall under. So I know there's been some talk top up or pay bumps for essential workers, healthcare workers, and stuff like that. Without knowing all the specifics, there may be circumstances where janitorial could be something that would fall into that category. There are also some programs whereby if you're a worker and maybe you're working reduced hours, but you're still able to work, there are some employment insurance programs that can top up that wage, right? So it's a reduced work program is essentially what that would be called. So those are fairly specific circumstances that you would definitely want to investigate, further with your employer to determine the specific details that relate to you and the work you're doing. But there's certainly potential there, I guess, and something that likely requires follow-up.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Ryan. So that appears to be the last of our questions. And with that, Ryan, before I call on our CEO, Collier Isaac, to close in prayer, did you have any closing comments on this first webinar?
Oh, I'd just like to say thank you again to everybody for listening to me talk tonight, and then also thank you, Bobby, for hosting this and moderating the webinar for us, and to Bev and Denise for participating alongside me. And then thanks to the NLG team in the background that's been working on us creating these documents to go up on the website and providing insight as to the type of questions that people might have here. So it's been a pleasure this far, and looking forward to future of these webinars and working together.
Great, thanks for that, Ryan. And indeed, it has been a pleasure. This is our first in a series, so keep posted to nisgaanation.ca for updates on the next scheduled webinar and what the topic areas may be. And as I mentioned earlier, please feel free to contact us by email to communications@nisga'a.net with your suggestions or what you'd want to have discussed on our next webinar. And we have discussed the potential for having them weekly, so it's likely that our next scheduled webinar will be sometime next week. So again, please keep posted to our website for that information. With that, I would like to call on our Samalkit X Leon, our Chief Executive Officer, Collier Isaac, if he would provide his closing comments and to close our gathering this evening in a word of prayer.
Thank you, Bobby, and congratulations to the panelists, to Ryan and Darren in particular. I know we had a senior management team meeting a few weeks ago where this idea was first came up, and the senior management team very quickly embraced this idea to provide this information to our people. So thank you to Darren and for suggesting it to our senior management team, and for Ryan for assisting in putting this all together, and to you, Bobby, for being the monitor. I think you've got a job now. So, and to our panelists, to Denise and Bev, thank you. And to all that participated, spread the word around. We're looking to do this on a weekly basis, and it's intended to help our people, provide support programs through the assistance of MNP, and to access these support programs for our people. And I think that was a great help. At least I got a good education on some of the things that I wasn't aware of before, but that sure helped me. So thank you for that. I won't be too much longer. I will just ask you all to maybe bow your heads, and we'll close in a word of prayer. Zeggen de achterlaas kun scharum zabmes omeen. Hier heb ik niet een schaar lang. Zodat het lisko niet men denkt het niet ik niet wil ken. Het ze ook kunnen dus omeen niet men kan weeks het niet die wil niet uit kan schrijven time te kun. Am gweud gaat op zap godaai om omeen. Am gweud gaan ik stap niet ik je wordt liggen glazen dus zum galeachst kun. Am gweud kom het zat kun is omeen kun niet een schaar lang kun I'm hoe was meenem Jesus Christ te Manuel. Amsterdam.
And Tim will. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you all.